you information and some of the specific answers that I know everybody has and really feels like they need. I will just start off by letting you know that in kind of concurrence to us battling this fire right now, our top priority is every single person sitting in this room and all 38,000 people that are not in their home or in their community. You all are the reason that we are here. We are your service. We are your public service. And I want you to understand that everybody in the firefighting force right now is working as hard as they can 24 hours a day for each and every one of you. So thank you for coming out and joining us here. Just a few housekeeping rules to begin with. If everyone can silence their cell phones just so that we don't have a bunch of phones going off, that would be greatly appreciated. And I'll also just kind of give you an insight into the process that we use behind the scenes for information. We put out releases of information twice a day about the numbers and the statistics. And that's at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. So you're not going to see a change in acreage usually between those two times. That's because our mapping missions happen between those two times, and we get accurate, updated numbers of structures and injuries and whatnot. So 7 and 7 are the important times for information updates throughout the state. If an evacuation order comes out in between those obviously get sent out immediately. But information comes out twice a day. Evacuation orders come out whenever. If you're looking for new ways to find information, you can always download an application called Ready for Wildfire. Ready for Wildfire has a map and a tab on there that as soon as that updated information loads at 7 o'clock in the database, it's on your phone. So you can sit there and refresh, and it's very, very helpful for people who are seeking information. And finally, other ways to get information questions answered are from 211.org, just calling 211 on your cell phone. They have the exact same information that we do and can be a valuable resource. With that, I know this is a little tight in here. In the days further, we have secured a larger facility for these community meetings. We will be continuing to do these because we know just how important it is to get the information out there for everybody. We have representatives from a lot of agencies here today. We have representatives from CAL FIRE, obviously, but also the Forest Service. We have representatives from the Sheriff's Office. We have the Reading Police Department. We have the National Park Service. We have BLM. We even have some administrative and executive staff from the City of Reading as well. So we have some people who can answer questions. We'll have a Q&A at the end of the briefings. We just ask that if you have a really specific question that 100 people don't need to hear the answer to, that you do that afterwards offline. So big picture questions for the group, specific questions for individuals at the end one-on-one. Without further ado, I'm just going to turn it over to maybe one of the most important people, and that's one of our operations folks who can give you a little bit of a briefing on what is actually happening out there, and that is Battalion Chief Troy Volin.
Good afternoon. I'm here to give you your operational update for what's happening on the fire. Down here in Branch 1, the southern end of the fire is active. It's come through the Clear Creek drainage. It's at the Igo Bridge currently. Crews are in there aggressively working to try and keep that fire from moving any further to the south or east. Up in Branch 2, we have a lot of work going on up here, a lot of dozer work to improve lines so that they can hold the fire from moving any further to the west beyond this ridge line here, this dot dash line that you see here. On the north end of the fire up in Branch 3, the fire is continuing to move to the north. It's in rough terrain and very active, and they're continuing to put resources in here to try and slow check that fire until they can get continuous line around the north end and hold the fire up there. On the east end of the fire continues to move to the east, and as it does so, there's a continued threat for spots. We've had spots on this fire as far away as 1 mile. So you can see that from that point, you may be able to spot across the river. So we have crews in there, and we also have crews on the east side of the river in case those spots come across. And that's it for the operational update.
Thank you, Chief. Next up is one of our Unified Incident Commanders, also a local division chief here in the unit, and that is Chief Brett Gouveia.
Well, good evening. As Jonathan said, my name is Brett Gouveia. I'm the Incident Commander for CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 1, and I'm also the Deputy Chief for Shasta Trinity Unit. You know, on this fire, we continue to work closely as a multi-agency leadership. As you can see, we have lots of agencies represented here tonight, and we're all working closely together, as well as in unified command with the National Park Service and the City of Reading Fire Department. In addition to that, we're working closely with the Shasta County Sheriff's Department for evacuations and repopulation planning. This fire continues to grow in several areas, as Troy pointed out. We have multiple fronts of the fire, large geographic area, something that we've never seen in Shasta County history. This fire has now burned through 5 major fires that have occurred in Shasta County over the last 50 years. It has incorporated all 5 of those areas. It has done things weather-wise, fire behavior-wise, that we have not seen before in this county. Many folks are asking questions about damage. How many structures are destroyed? As you can imagine, that is a labor-intensive process, and we have 2 processes that we go through. The first is to get numbers quickly, and that's what we call a windshield survey. So as of last night, you saw that we were at 500 structures confirmed. What that is people going to each structure and flagging it as and taking it down as a loss. That number will grow from the 500. You may see that number grow as early as this evening as folks work through that. Again, following that, we will have what we call a damage inspection process, which is much more specific to the location, the address, the type of building. It could even be a vehicle, an outbuilding. Very, very intensive as to exactly what's been lost and where. That's a much more overall specific process. We're still working through the windshield process to get all of you good numbers. The last thing we want to do is pick numbers out of the sky and give you something that's not accurate. So I know that's frustrating, and I know some of you know that there's more than 500 potentially out there, but that's the process we're working through to give you accurate numbers as we move forward. That windshield survey should be completed in a very timely manner. We are currently utilizing the National Guard in support functions in the air, and there are also troops coming in to help us with suppression efforts. Aircraft, a lot of questions about aircraft. We have a lot of aircraft here, both rotary wing helicopters and fixed wing air tankers. As you can see, flying conditions aren't really good all the time here around the city and over the fire. So we take every opportunity we can to safely get that aircraft up and use it every chance we get. Sometimes you'll see more rotary wing helicopters flying because they can fly in a little heavier smoke and move at slower speeds. When we do get those windows of opportunity where we get clean air, the fixed wing air tankers are standing by, and we get them in the air immediately, and we use them whenever we have that window. Evacuations are still possible. We're being very aggressive as to evacuations, and I will let the sheriff speak much more to that. Based on what we have seen on this fire, we're taking no chances on getting people out. So evacuations are well ahead of the fire, well in advance, so we can give everybody an opportunity to get their belongings and get out of the home safely. We are working right now to secure areas to start repopulation. We have folks right now working through all the clearances to get areas cleared to repopulate. That process is a little bit complicated. Some people might say it's as simple as just letting folks back in. However, each and every one of you expect us to mitigate all the hazards that are out there for when you take your family and your children back in there, you don't have to worry about down power lines, hazard trees falling on you, and all kinds of other hazards that fires create when they come through an area. So we work closely with all of our cooperators, the public utilities companies, the gas companies, the roads, to get everybody to sign off on a repopulation of an area. It's a very extensive process. It's streamlined, and we are doing it as quickly as possible to get all of you that are displaced back into your homes. Our priority still, number one, is to protect the citizens of Shasta County and the city of Redding. Secondly, our cooperators and our firefighters. Safety is a priority. We've seen some things on this fire that have been tough for all of us, and we don't want to see any more of that. I just want to reaffirm our commitment to stay here and see this through the end, from suppression into recovery. We currently have over 3,500 firefighters on the line working 24 hours a day to try and mitigate this incident. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. A lot of times you hear this term unified command or unified incident commanders. Just to give you a background on what that is, this is a multi-jurisdictional incident, right? So it's burning without regard to whose jurisdiction this is on. Obviously, to meet the expectation of the public, all of the agency's commanders get together and make decisions together. We don't operate in silos. So when you hear unified commanders, that means that agencies are working together from the top to mitigate this. And with that, one of our unified incident commanders from the National Park Service is Mr. Rick Young.
Good evening, and thanks for coming tonight. First of all, I want to say my thoughts and prayers are with all of you that have been affected by this. I personally know many of you, and it's a tough thing to deal with. I want you to know this morning we woke up, we had 3,400 firefighters or people assigned to this incident, trying to put containment line around 100 miles of fire perimeter. We continue those efforts. This morning we had about 110 fire engines assigned, and there's more incidents breaking across the state. But I'm pleased to announce that this afternoon the National Park Service and CAL FIRE have been able to sign an agreement through the Farm Bill to bring in an additional 150 engines from out of state to help with the efforts. So that'll help us out greatly. And then finally, I just want to say thank you for your patience and support as we continue to work as quickly as we can to get you guys back into your houses. Thank you.
Next up from the U.S. Forest Service is Acting Forest Fire Management Officer Alex McBath.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Alex McBath, Deputy Fire Management Officer for the Shasta Trinity National Forest. First off, I just want to talk a little bit about the Forest Service involvement with this incident. We currently have quite a few resources assigned to this. Just off the Shasta Trinity, we're well below drawdown with most of those resources on this fire. In particular, we have a lot of concerns. The Forest Supervisor is very active and engaged with the ICs, so his involvement is on course, and he's looking out for our federal lands that are up to the north. So with that, what we've done a little bit to help out and augment what the current incident's doing, we've developed a branch under the incident. We have federal resources through our system, which we can get some other resources in, starting to do some contingency in the north. So we fully understand what the values and the priorities are on this fire. It's life and property and the resources, right? And we know where the life is right now. We are starting to open up some of our pre-attack planning up in the Lakehead area, and I want to make sure that everybody understands what they're doing up there. We're taking the few minimal resources that we have, and we're opening up some lines, some planned lines up there so that we get way ahead of this thing. Fire's not there. CAL FIRE and the incident and the Unified Command are doing their job down below, and hopefully it'll never get there. But we're going to take advantage of the time we have and start opening those lines and start planning out even further ahead than that, because there are still communities to the north, and I know the focus right now is on the south, but the Forest Service has a focus on the north. So thank you.
Next up is someone who's been on this incident from the beginning, Shasta County Sheriff Tom Bosanko.
Thank you very much. My name is Tom Bosanko, Shasta County Sheriff, and I'm also the Director of Emergency Services for Region 3, which includes the 13 Northern California counties. As it was said earlier, we're working under a unified command. My staff is working closely with CAL FIRE and the fire operators here on evacuations and then all the way through repopulation. We're working closely with our state, federal, and city partners. We have established an emergency operations center in addition to the incident command center at the fairgrounds. The evacuations, these were occurring early on in the incident. They've occurred through a number of ways. We have used the dialogic communicator, which is commonly known as reverse 911. That is for hardline phones. We used code red. That is for cellular phones. However, you have to opt in, meaning sign up for the program. You can do that by going to our dispatch center, SASCOM 911, online, and you can register your cell phone there. We have used crawlers, and those are the ribbons that you see crawling across the bottom of your television screen. We have used social media. We have used the emergency alert system that comes across radio and television. And we have used another system through the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Administration, called IPAWS, and that is the Integrated Public Alert Warning System, and that also uses cellular phones as well. It usually casts a little bit broader area, and that can cause a little bit of confusion and anxiety because it can go outside of our boundaries that we're doing the evacuations are, where they're occurring or getting ready to. But we'd rather have people be prepared and knowing that danger is coming than not get the warning. After evacuations occur, we have security patrols in place for some individuals that either get in past the evacuation and roadblocks or remain in behind. It is imperative when we give these evacuation notices to already be ready ahead of time. Oftentimes through the news, you know and see the fire is working. Be ready. Have your belongings, important papers, photographs, cell phones, and chargers, don't forget those, all ready to go. And then when we give that evacuation notice, please leave. It's imperative. If you feel the need, you don't feel safe, trust that intuition, that gut feeling, and leave ahead of time. Don't wait for a notice. You may not see flames or even the smoke before an evacuation notice. That doesn't mean the danger's not there. We work very closely, my staff works very closely with the fire operators on where the fire is occurring, what the behavior it's doing, and we have decision points on maps. When they reach certain areas, the decision is made to give evacuation notices way out in front of the fire. Our roads are made for our regular vehicles, not mainly when they're crowded with firefighting apparatus. That's why we're giving these notices in advance. We have large trucks, semi-trucks with dozers with 10 and 12-foot blades on them. We don't want the evacuees coming out when the fire apparatus is coming in. That can cause collisions, it can cause gridlock, and it can get people injured or killed. That's why we want people leaving early. It is imperative to please leave early, because then people make the decision to stay behind. They're putting themselves, their family, and the fire operators in danger, because then when the flames are there and people can become trapped, these hardworking men and women of the fire are there, and they're risking their lives to come in and do a rescue. And we saw that happen in this particular incident. A fireman came in, was risking his life, was able to make a rescue, and then his car, his pickup, was overrun, breaking the windows out of it, but that rescue was successfully completed. But he was risking his life to get those people out of there when they probably should have left ahead of time. We have had reports of looting within the county. We just made an arrest, and that person is going off to jail, and we caught him. He was a parolee. There's been other reports within the city, and Chief Roger Moore of the Reading Police Department will speak further on that. This was a very fast-moving fire. In some cases, it was difficult to get out ahead of the fire for the notifications. We had staff that was just ahead of the fire trying to give these notifications. In addition to all the technology we used, we're also good old-fashioned, if we have the time, going door to door to make that notification, marking the homes in a certain code that we have, if the home is occupied and if the notification was made, or if no one was home. We also used the public address system, speakers on our emergency vehicles to broadcast for people to evacuate. As Emergency Services Director, I declared a local emergency on Monday or Tuesday. The days are kind of blending in with the limited amount of sleep. Soon thereafter, Governor Brown gave a governor's declaration for a state of emergency for Shasta County and other counties in the state of California. The governor's office have gone to and contacted Washington, D.C. for direct federal assistance to help Shasta County as well. We have put out a law enforcement mutual aid request. We call that LEMA, and we have received assistance from our surrounding county agencies, sheriff's offices in Lassen, Siskiyou, Tehama, Glenn, El Dorado, and others, in addition to police departments from outside the area, but of course, assistance from Reading Police Department and Anderson Police Department here locally. We've also been assisted by the California Highway Patrol. They bring a lot of resources and assets to the table. Currently, there are nearly 135 California Highway Patrol officers working this incident, both at the roadblocks and on our roving security patrols, and they have pulled resources out of our local area, the Northern Division, which includes those Northern California counties where they're serving, and then also their Valley Division and their Central Division, sending their officers up here. I have asked and received the support and assistance of the California National Guard. The National Guard is to assist and support the Sheriff's Office and the fire operations here locally. The military police unit is here, and they're bringing approximately 260 military police officers and equipment to assist the Sheriff's Office. They'll be assisting us and law enforcement at the roadblocks. They can also be assisting us with other assets for communications and more. These are also men and women that are not only serving our country, some of whom live here as well. They're assisting us with satellite communications and also mapping. As was heard earlier, over 500 structures have been lost, including many people's homes. And I sympathize with that. Even our own staff has lost homes and been evacuated, and there are some people up here that have been evacuated and lost homes as well, and my heart goes out to them. There's been thousands of evacuation notices given, and has displaced about 38,000 people in Shasta County in the Reading area proper. There are more evacuations going on as we speak right now in the Happy Valley and Igo areas. There are a number of shelters that have been set up here and in Trinity County. The shelters are at Shasta College, Cross Point Community Church, Simpson University, and in Weaverville at the elementary school there. I ask that the evacuation centers be used for those that are evacuated, displaced, or have lost their homes. We're getting reports of the evacuation centers with people coming in that are outside of the evacuation areas, and they are starting to fill up those evacuation centers. So please, for those that are outside the evacuation areas, please use other means if you choose to be outside and not in your home. There has been established a missing persons hotline. That number is 530-225-4211. This hotline is staffed at our communications center. Our communications center is with the City of Reading, Reading Police Department, Reading Fire Department, and Anderson Police Department, as well as the Sheriff's Office. We have that staffed. Once the report is taken, it'll be determined of the investigating jurisdictional agencies, such as Reading Police Department or Sheriff's Office, and that will be investigated. To date, there's been over a dozen, maybe by now approaching about 20 missing persons reports. The majority of those have been cleared, and what I mean by cleared is an investigator will go to the home or to a site of maybe where the home has been destroyed. There may not be any cars there. We try and make contact. We do a visual survey and try and determine if there's anybody there or not, and then also try and other means of communication. The Red Cross is working on reunification notifications for family members that may not be in contact with their loved ones. If a person has been displaced, evacuated, and has not been in contact with friends or family, I ask them to please reach out so to let them know and to reduce their anxiety and fears and to ensure that they're safe, but then also to avoid a missing persons report and having additional resources committed to that. Out of the missing persons reports, we have had 3 confirmed fatalities, civilian fatalities, in the fire. And again, I emphasize the importance for evacuations early. Chief Govea commented about repopulation. That is very important to us. Safety is first and foremost. We have to go through those safety precautions because of down power lines that are partially down across the roadways. We have to render those safe. There are power poles and trees that are down. There are power poles and trees that have been partially consumed and still standing, but pose a serious threat with a clear and present danger to falling and injuring someone. And so we have to go through with and clear those out. There's also gas leaks due to propane tanks or natural gas that has to be secured by the utility companies. The phone lines down. Phone lines also pose a threat, especially if they cross a power line and those power lines have been re-energized, maybe due to generator power. And so we want to ensure that everything is safe. For those people that need medications, I've gotten word that Cottonwood Pharmacy is set up and prepared that if you need emergency prescriptions refilled, they will be accommodating for that. Or you can also, of course, contact your local pharmacy wherever you may have your prescriptions at and work on an emergency refill. For further information, please go to 211 for information. There can be resource information there. You can also go to, for fire information updates, to a website, and it is tiny, T-I-N-Y, URL, all one word, .com/Carr, C-A-R-R, fire. You can also go to the CAL FIRE website and Facebook page, the Sheriff's Office Facebook page, which we are standing up in a more robust fashion right now. Try and get your information from confirmed sources such as the government entities. There is a lot of misinformation on social media, even about evacuations and such. Please go to a trusted site. I give my most sincere appreciation to the hardworking men and women of our fire crews that have been out there. The biggest thing that you can do is to offer them a thank you, a sign, that says thank you, firefighters. Oftentimes in these large incident command posts, there's plywood boards. People send in cards and letters drawing from some children, and they post it up there that just says thank you, firefighters. These men and women have been going at it prior to even in Shasta County for days and weeks. I was out on the fire lines myself with one of the chiefs, and these folks are tired. They've been up for 24, 36, 48 hours straight. They get tired, they get down. This fire is very aggressive. Sometimes they feel that they may be losing the battle, but they're out there and just saying, we were out there contacting them directly. You folks are great. You're awesome. Keep up the fight. Keep going. You see smiles on their faces, and they get re-energized, and they're ready to go back at it for you and the community. For those individuals that have lost homes, I sympathize you greatly. Again, we were out doing a tour and saw the devastation. All complete subdivisions leveled. It looked like a war zone. Sometimes no homes standing, and those were some people's lives that they had and many memories that were invested there, and I sympathize with you greatly. And then there's those that have also possibly lost some loved ones. We've had some firefighters that have been injured on this, and then unfortunately they have lost their lives fighting this fire. And my most sincere sympathy goes out to them, their families, and their brothers and sisters in the fire agencies. And then, of course, my staff at the Sheriff's Office have been putting in some very long hours and doing out there on those patrols. One of my staff lost his home, and he made a post that he's still at work. He's out there on patrol, and he said, no looting on my watch. And that's his commitment. He wants to keep going. Please be assured that we are here for you and the community till this end, and repopulation and reconstruction, and it'll make us stronger. Thank you.
Our last formal speaker from the City of Reading Police Department is Chief Roger Moore.
Thank you very much. I'm going to keep my comments brief because I want everyone to think about questions to ask. So as I look out there, I see a lot of nervousness and anxiety, and there's good reason. But I want you to know that our officers are out there 24/7 protecting you, both from the fire, staying out in front of it for evacuations, and from crime. Having said that, unfortunately, we have experienced a lot of looting in some of these evacuation zones. And so we are turning our attention to that, and we are beefing up our security in some of these areas. As the sheriff said earlier, we've already made one arrest, and we have suspect information on several others. I was on the phone briefly a couple hours ago with Stephanie Bridget from the DA's office, who wanted me to pass along a message that she is going to be prosecuting that to the full extent as a felony, and we are going to make them very public. And so you need to know that. I ask that as you drive around the city, you will see lots of roadblocks. And I would just ask that everybody be patient with the roadblocks. I know people want to get to and from locations, but believe me, those roadblocks are up for a reason. And if someone decides to bypass those roadblocks and take off, now we have to chase them down, which pulls resources from the roadblock. So please be patient. We are truly out there for you. In the Reading Police Department, law enforcement agencies, fire crews, volunteers are out there for you. Reading is strong, and we're going to get through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We're limited to one microphone, so we're going to get Bryce some exercise right now. When you have a question, he'll bring the microphone to you, and then he'll run it back here to the appropriate person. So get ready, Bryce. Just want to reiterate broad questions, please, questions that are applicable to the crowd. If you have a specific question, either a PIO or an agency representative afterwards. So I'll give Bryce the mic, and we'll start with some questions.
So much, first of all, thank you. I just want to know, I know that there's lots of different burned out areas, but I'm wondering if we've left animals behind, how we can get somebody to go check on them. I've tried and nobody's checked on them yet, and I know we're burned out. But I just need to know that one of our animals is okay.
Thank you very much. The question was, how do we care for the animals that have maybe been left behind? Our furry friends, your friends, are our friends as well. Even they're the friends of the firefighters. And I know for a fact, in these rural fires and in the city fires, if they go around and find an animal that needs food or water, oftentimes the firefighters, if they're at the home and they have the availability, they go in, look around and scan for some food, and provide that food if they can find that bag of food or hay for the large animals. They provide water for them if they can get water there, sometimes using even the water from the fire engines. The Shasta County Sheriff's Office Animal Regulation Unit and Enforcement Unit, we're out there working in partnership with Haven Humane Society. We've received assistance from Butte County Animal Enforcement and Humane Society as well. We are receiving animals. We also take in lost animals and found animals that have been displaced. If your animals are in your home and you want to get back in to care for them, again, we can't do that for repopulation, but if you can get a hold of us, we'll get a hold of our animal control folks and go out there, check on the animals and or collect them and bring them back in. For large animals, we are also we have housing available at the Reading Rodeo grounds. They've graciously opened up their grounds for housing of large animals, mainly horses. We do have, with the Sheriff's Office and Haven Humane, we do have stock trailers to haul those out and work with them as well. So thank you. You can call our Sheriff's Office dispatch at 245-6540. And they will direct that to our incident command and get that information out there so we can get them checked on and or hauled away. I know that there is one person in particular that has personally contacted me. He's a friend of mine. And he goes, hey, can I get back in? He lives out in a remote area of the county to take care of my horse, and his horse is very large. We don't even have a trailer that can get it in there. But right now, with all the evacuations that we're doing, we can't get to it. It has food and water. And as soon as we can free up some available personnel, we'll probably have him go back in there. But right now, the high priority is saving of human lives and trying to care for the animals as well.
How will we, is there a system in place where we can determine when we can return to our homes after we've been evacuated?
Yeah, as I spoke earlier, every morning with all of our cooperators, when we go through an area that we think is ready to be repopulated, all the cooperators go through that area and make sure that we can do all the safety checks, and everybody signs off on the utilities, like I said, the power lines, the roads, all those things. And then the sheriff, I'll let him speak to how that information will get out to you. It'll go through press releases. It'll come over all the other indications that he was given earlier, but I'll let him speak more to that. But we are doing that process twice a day, every single day, on as much as we can possibly free up and get those checks done. We got everybody out there, like I said, huge priority for us to get you back to your homes. So if we can clear them, get those safety checks done, then we're working hand in hand with the law enforcement, both the City of Reading Police Department and the Sheriff's Department, to try and get folks back in. But I'll let those folks get to you on the notification process.
Thank you, Chief. Again, safety is first and foremost. Oftentimes the infrastructure, roads, and the utility power lines have been damaged. We have to get those back up, or the utility companies do. When we come to the decision with our fire cooperators to repopulate an area, we do so in a controlled process, and it's done in stages. Usually a section of a community will be repopulated so that we're just not dropping the green flag and everybody's rushing in at the same time. We also give out notifications via the media with press releases that we'll be repopulating areas and opening it back up. You'll see that also on our social media and through all the agencies that we're cooperating with, such as CAL FIRE, City Police, and the Sheriff's Office as well. And I forgot our furry friends in the City of Reading. City of Reading contracts with Haven Humane for animal services. And again, that dispatch number 6540, you can call in, and they can also be checking on animals within the City of Reading, and we're working in partnership with Haven too. And I hope that answers your question on repopulation, sir.
Thank you, Bryce. Hey, judging, with your opinion, judging from the winds that are forecast, do you feel like you have the fire controlled from moving east, particularly into Reading?
So where the fire is at in the city of Reading to the east on this push right here, since the first time that fire crossed the river there, we've had heavy resource commitments in that area. I feel pretty confident that the portion of the fire that impacted the city is not moving any further to the east. When I spoke about the fire moving to the east, it would be in this section up here in what we're calling Division Papa and Sierra. And as the fire continues to move to the north and east above Reading proper, there may be a chance that it may come down close enough to the Sacramento River drainage to spot across into some of the communities north of the city of Reading. So let's call it Walker Mine, if anyone's familiar with that. North of the city of Reading proper, that's about where I'm talking about, any movement or potential movement to the east. Now it has to get close enough and either cross over the river drainage or spot over the river drainage. There's a lot of activity, a lot of resources inside that area to keep that from happening. And there's also a lot of resources on the east side of the river so that if that does happen, we can get to them quick and start attacking that fire also. So to answer your question specifically as far as eastward movement in the city, I think we're pretty confident that it's not going to move.
Hi, I was wondering about Haven Humane being evacuated, which wasn't mandatory, and also Wind River. And do you have this fire controlled on the very south side, not by Igo-Ono, but more by Placer, Texas Springs, that area down there? Is that moving southward, eastward? What's going on with that whole area there on that part of West Reading?
I'm sorry, would you mind repeating?
Yeah, so Haven Humane is evacuating. Wind River Casino is evacuating. I hear it's not mandatory. I would like to know what is happening to the southern end of the fire, not at Igo-Ono, but further east on Placer, more like the Texas Springs area, the Montgomery Ranch subdivision. If it has moved east and east and south in that area there, is there containment there? Is that subdivision gone? Is Texas Springs gone? Thank you.
So I was in that area today right around lunch, 1300 hours, 1 o'clock, and the area that you're specifically speaking of, there isn't fire on the ground moving south of Placer Road. So the fire is active north of that area, up in the Mule Mountain or the Muletown Ridge road systems up in there, but the fire has not moved down into Montgomery Ranch, Texas Springs, or any of that. The fire is still very active in that area, but there are a lot of resources out there. Yes, the obvious goal out there is to try and hold that to any major road system And all of the resources that are out there are trying to do that right now. They're all working on that goal right there.
Also, you asked about the animals for Haven Humane. Haven Humane is open and operational. That was just a little while ago, earlier this afternoon. Of course, my hours are kind of blending in, so that was probably at least around noon that I had that information. But they are there for the animals as well.
Can you explain exactly what you mean by 5% containment? Is that a place, or can you explain it?
So stopping the forward spread of a fire is not containment. Just putting line along the edge of it and having hot fire up against dozer line, hand line, those things that we do, those perimeter lines, is not containment for us. Containment is when we feel confident that that line is not going to escape, meaning that we have gone in there, we've mopped that area up, as we call it, to where we're just in patrol status to make sure no new smokes pop up. So when we say that, 5% of the fire's perimeter, around the outside perimeter of the fire, it's 5% of that area right now is what we feel comfortable with just patrolling and not worrying about too much hot spots, just making sure there's no visible smokes in that area. The rest of the fire has active heat enough to make us concerned about actively getting in there and working and mopping up continually till we get rid of all those hot areas. That. As you heard Chief Young speak earlier, there's about 100 miles of perimeter around the fire. So 5% in relative relation to that.
Could you help just clarify when you say, we totally appreciate the safety that's needed to confirm the repopulation areas, but I think a lot of people want to know whether that's days, if it's a couple days. I think people would really feel better if they knew whether we're talking a couple days, 4 days, 5 days, because I know most of the power has been restored into the areas, which should alleviate people's concerns about their refrigerated items and things, but also getting back into their homes, which would be helpful if you could give us an estimate.
That is difficult to predict. Just because power has been restored, it doesn't mean that it's safe yet. We have to go through those checks with our cooperators and partners to ensure the safety of the community. I'm a firm believer of Murphy. And Murphy, if it can go wrong, it will go wrong, and he'll show up, and maybe there will be a very big push on the fire, and resources have to be directed to fighting that fire, which could delay a repopulation effort. So please, I can't put days to it, and I don't believe the fire cooperators can either, but we are doing everything that we can to get those areas secure and safe to get you back into your homes and area so that you can make an assessment of the damages. Thanks.
Is Shasta Lake City evacuated?
Good question. We have, and it's been asked many times, and so that's why there's probably some chuckles going on. We gave an evacuation order and an active evacuation for Summit City, just to the west of the city of Shasta Lake. Again, there was a evacuation order put out for the city of Shasta Lake. That was in error. That doesn't mean there wasn't danger. So there was a decision made by staff not to recall that evacuation order, but not to go in and do any active evacuations. The reason that was made that way, it would leave the order in place rather than rescind it and say, oh, no evacuation order, but there was still the threat and safety concern of the fire progressing further north and east into the city of Shasta Lake. So we said, we'll leave it in place, and then if we have to do the active evacuations, we'll get those notices out via technology and door-to-door and make that. Because then we rescind it and then put it back in place. People have some confusion. I'm not leaving because it's not real. We don't want to have that. We want people to evacuate when we give that. But there was some confusion on that, and I do appreciate the question. There is no active evacuation being made in the city of Shasta Lake.
So we'll take 2 more questions for the formal group. You have the command staff of 3,500 people sitting right here, and their time is obviously valuable to make sure those troops are getting the direction they need out there. So we'll take 2 more for the group, and then we'll have breakouts and representatives available for you. And Bryce, I'll do some running now, so we'll go over here. And I know people in the back have had some questions, so I'll move.
In the highly unlikely event that the fire moves to the east, will we have one-way traffic on the interstates and the highways so that we can sleep knowing we can get out more rapidly?
So if it moves east traffic, I'm going to grab you right here while I'm here.
I was just wondering exactly how close the fire is to us right now and where the best place for us, the next largest evacuation center is.
So the road structure, if it comes east? Sure. Yep.
I was wondering exactly how close we are to the fire right now, and also where the next largest evacuation center is.
All right. So we got 3 questions. We have the road closures if it were to go further east. We have where is it right now? And then obviously the 3rd question. So first up, the fire perimeter, just how far is it from right here?
Well, from where we stand, if you drew a line east, we're looking at fire perimeter being impacted in the area just east of the river where it crossed Shasta Dam, Lake Boulevard and Buenaventura. In that area, they made a stand that evening and were able to tie in some line, and that's the closest perimeter. Now, active fire, the closest active fire that you're going to have is going to be that fire that is in the IGO area right now that came out of the Clear Creek drainage, and it's right now actively burning near the bridge. And to the north, your active fire front would be in that area west of the lake and east of the Sacramento River drainage. I don't have exact like air miles for you or anything, but if you could kind of imagine those areas as being where the closest active fire is.
I will address the traffic question. For instance, Thursday night when we had that extremely bad fire rip through the west part of the city, took out many, many subdivisions, we realized very quickly that this fire is unpredictable. And what had happened by then, a lot of people weren't heeding the warning about evacuations. That's problem 1. Problem 2 is these streets aren't designed for so many people coming down. I was right in the middle of that. And I can tell you what we did with the help of our highway patrol friends is we took all of North Market Street and made it one-way northbound to get out of the city, and we have plans to do that again. We don't want to do that again, so evacuate soon, but we have plans to do that.
Thank you, Chief. The planning goes on 24/7. We're planning on opening up Foothill High School for the next evacuation center, and those is in cooperation with the Red Cross to get staffing here as well. So that hasn't been opened yet, but again, we'll push out media when it is open. And also, we get a lot of requests for donations. So for donations of food and stuff for the firefighters, while they appreciate it very, very much, we are self-contained at the ICP, the command center, for all of our personnel. If you want to help out, you can help out the Red Cross, and if you want to contact them and Red Cross representatives. There are also many of our friends and neighbors, churches, and other organizations that want to help those that have been impacted with loss or evacuations, and you may seek out those that are advertising for assistance with clothing, food, and other supplies, especially for those that have lost everything. Thank you.
All right, that concludes the formal portion of the questions. Just one more resource that you might find valuable. This perimeter you see up here, the red, that gets published every day on the CAL FIRE website by 9 a.m. So if you look after 9 a.m., you're going to see the latest fire perimeter online. The website is fire.ca.gov. And again, everybody up here, with the exception of some of the commanders, will be available for questions. Thank you so much.